Eliza adjusted the scanner as the ship floated above the planet. She stared at the blinking lights, trying to make sense of the readings. "Something's odd here," she murmured. Her voice was soft, almost lost in the hum of the ship's engines. Tom, standing across the deck, leaned over her shoulder. He frowned at the screen. "No signs of life," he said slowly, "but the energy readings are off the charts. This doesn't make sense." Eliza shook her head. "It's like the planet is asleep. But something is still awake. Something hidden." Clara walked over, holding a small notebook. She peered at the scanner. "I've never seen anything like this. Look at the energy spikes. They don't match anything in our records. It's like someone, or something, is keeping it alive." The three of them stood in silence for a moment, staring at the faint green glow on the scanner. Outside, the planet stretched in shades of gray and blue. From space, it looked empty, lifeless, but the readings suggested otherwise. Finally, Eliza spoke. "We have to land. We need to see it for ourselves." Tom nodded. "Agreed. Let's suit up." The landing took longer than usual. The planet's thin atmosphere made the descent tricky. The ship shuddered as it passed through clouds of fine dust. Below them, the ground was cracked and uneven. Strange shapes rose from the landscape, tall, thin structures that glinted in the weak light. When the ship finally touched down, the three of them climbed out slowly. The ground was soft and cold beneath their boots. The air smelled faintly metallic, and tiny sparks danced across the surface, reacting to the presence of the ship. "This place," Clara whispered, looking around. "It feels like someone lived here. But I don't see any signs of life now." Eliza walked toward one of the structures. It was tall and thin, made of a material she had never seen before. It was smooth, almost translucent, like glass, but stronger. The surface shimmered faintly under the planet's dim sunlight. Tom joined her, touching the side of the tower. "It's warm. Somehow, still warm. Even though nothing else is moving." Eliza knelt and scanned the base of the tower. The scanner beeped softly. "There's some kind of energy field inside. It's weak, but it's definitely there. Like a heartbeat, but not alive." Clara walked over to another building, smaller and rounder. Its walls were made of the same material, pulsing faintly as if breathing. She ran her hand along the surface, then stepped back. "No record of this anywhere," she said. "It's like they never existed." The three of them explored carefully. Broken devices lay scattered across the ground, some still glowing faintly. Panels that looked like they had once held screens now reflected the light of their suits' helmets. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, glowing softly in patterns that seemed to shift when looked at directly. Eliza crouched beside one of the devices. It was a small cube, glowing inside with a light that moved like liquid. She touched it gently, and the light spread across the surface. A soft hum filled the air, low and steady, almost like a song. "Listen," she said. Tom and Clara leaned closer. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the ground and into their boots. It was not music, not exactly, but it had rhythm. There was intelligence in it. Clara's eyes widened. "It's like it's alive. But not alive like we are. Something remembering. Something waiting." Tom looked around nervously. "We should record everything. Take samples. We don't know what we're dealing with." Eliza nodded. She activated her tablet and began logging the structures, the devices, and the strange energy patterns. Every time she scanned a device, the glow changed as if it was aware of her presence. Hours passed as they explored. They found more towers, more devices, and signs of something that had once been a civilization. The structures were not ruined, they were paused. Everything seemed to be waiting. Waiting for someone to come back or waiting for the right time to awaken. At one point, Clara stopped in front of a building that was larger than the others. Its walls were taller than their ship, stretching into the sky. Symbols moved across it in flowing patterns. She reached out her hand. "Do you think they could have been like us?" Eliza shook her head slowly. "No, not like us. Something different. Smarter maybe. Stronger in ways we don't understand." Tom frowned. Why would they leave all this behind? Why vanish without a trace? Clara touched the wall gently. "Maybe they didn't vanish. Maybe we just weren't meant to find them yet." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. The three of them stood quietly, feeling the weight of the silence around them. It was not empty, it was full of something they could not name. Something that had been alive in its own way and maybe still was. Finally, Eliza broke the silence. "We should return to the ship before dark. There's enough here to study for weeks, but I have a feeling we haven't seen everything yet." As they walked back, a soft pulse of light ran along the ground, almost like a warning or a greeting. They did not stop. Something deep inside told them this planet had stories, secrets, and dangers they were not yet ready to understand. Back on the ship, Eliza looked down at the planet as they lifted off. "We found something incredible," she said softly. "Something the universe didn't want us to see." Tom adjusted the controls. "Or something we were meant to find. Something that's been waiting a very long time." Clara stared at the fading towers below. "I feel like we're not the first humans to step here, but maybe we are the first to really notice." The ship rose higher, leaving the planet behind. Yet the faint pulsing of the structures below seemed to follow them, echoing in their minds. Every log, every recording they took would tell the story of the planet, but not everything could be explained. "Not yet." Eliza leaned back in her seat. "We'll come back," she whispered. "We have to." The crew fell silent, each lost in thoughts of what they had just seen. The planet was quiet, but it had left a mark on them, a seed of curiosity and unease that would not go away. Somewhere deep inside, the structures pulsed again, faint but steady like a heartbeat. The planet waited, patient as if it knew humanity would return. And somewhere, in that quiet pulse, the story of the last species that truly enraged humanity had begun to stir again. The team had returned to the ship after their first exploration of the planet, but the mysteries of the ruins refused to leave their minds. Eliza carefully unpacked the small, dusty crate they had found inside one of the larger towers. The crate was filled with strange metallic discs, brittle papers, and old glass cylinders that hummed faintly when touched. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," Eliza murmured, brushing dust from the top of one of the discs. She held it up to the light, and faint symbols shimmered across its surface. They were unlike any alphabet the team had ever seen, flowing and shifting almost as if they were alive. Tom leaned closer. "I don't think these are just decorations. They mean something. Maybe instructions, or messages." Clara knelt and gently picked up one of the glass cylinders. It was warm to the touch, and the faint hum it gave off made the hairs on her arms rise. She rolled it carefully in her hands and tapped it against the scanner. "There's a signal inside," she said, eyes wide. "It's weak but it's there. Almost like a memory trapped in this glass." Eliza smiled faintly. "Then let's wake it up." It took hours, but finally they managed to activate one of the devices. A holographic image appeared, flickering at first, then stabilizing. The projection showed a vast space fleet moving through the stars and then, chaos. Ships exploded. Planets burned. People screamed. Ben, who had been quietly observing, whispered, "What is this? It looks like war." Clara's hand shook as she adjusted the scanner. "No," she said, voice trembling. "It's more than war. This is psychological. Look at how they collapse without even seeing the enemy. Fear, anger, confusion. They're controlling minds, not just fighting ships." Eliza leaned closer. The images shifted, showing humans losing entire colonies to unseen attacks. Communications were distorted, fleets disappeared without warning, and settlements burned in strange patterns. It was as if someone had found a way to make humans fight themselves. "Who could do this?" Ben asked, voice low. "And why would history erase it?" Eliza frowned, her mind turning over the images again and again. "Because humanity almost failed," she said quietly. "We faced something so powerful, so clever, that we were on the edge of destruction. And somehow we survived. That might be why people didn't want anyone to remember." Clara shook her head. "It's terrifying. These beings, the virile, they weren't just strong. They were smarter than us. They knew how to use our own weaknesses against us." Tom crossed his arms, staring at the flickering holograms. "And yet we're still here. Somehow. Against all odds. There must have been a way we fought back, or learned to resist them." Eliza turned away from the projection and picked up a thin, metallic tablet. Symbols danced across its surface as she tapped it, translating slowly into a language she could understand. It told stories of the virile, a species that had existed long before humans had spread among the stars. They were highly intelligent, with abilities humans could barely comprehend. Their strategy was simple but cruel. They attacked the mind, not the body. They sought to drive humans into anger, fear, and despair, using emotions as weapons. Ben read over her shoulder. "They wanted to make us insane. And almost did. It's like every failure we ever had, they caused it." Eliza nodded slowly. "Yes. And yet here we are. They thought anger would destroy us. But anger did not destroy us. It shaped us." Clara's eyes were wide. "Do you think, all the wars we've had, all the struggles, maybe we weren't just fighting each other? Maybe we were fighting what they started in us. Tom ran a hand over his face. It's hard to imagine. All this time, and no one ever talks about it. It's like the Virile never existed. They did exist, Eliza said firmly. And they were terrifying. They were clever, patient, cruel. And we survived. That's why we're here. That's why humanity exists. For a long while the team didn't speak. The ship hummed around them as they stared at the projections. They could see fleets destroyed, colonies falling, and humans at the brink of despair. And yet, through it all, some humans had resisted, fought back, and survived. Clara finally broke the silence. Do you think the Virile underestimated us? They made a mistake by thinking anger alone could control humanity. Eliza's eyes hardened. Maybe they did. Humans are stubborn. We never give up even when the odds are against us. And when we fight, we learn. We adapt. That's what makes us dangerous. Ben shook his head slowly. It's strange. To think that a species we've never met, that history pretends never existed, could have shaped us so much. Clara leaned back in her chair. It's almost like we're a product of their hatred. They tried to destroy us with it, and instead, they made us stronger. Eliza walked over to the hologram and touched it lightly. We should study this. We need to understand it. If the Virile were alive today, humanity would need to be ready. We need to know what they did and how we survived it. Tom watched the flickering images of fleets and burning colonies. It's scary, he admitted. But it's also inspiring. We survived something no one else could have. That makes us special. The team spent the next few hours analyzing the logs. They discovered records of secret human fleets that had fought back in clever ways. Entire colonies had vanished, only to reappear later, having found ways to survive the Virile's psychological attacks. Some humans had even turned the attacks against the Virile, finding weaknesses in their strategy. Clara whispered as she read one of the logs, "It wasn't just courage, it was intelligence. We didn't just fight with weapons. We fought with our minds. And we learned from every mistake." Eliza nodded. That's what history doesn't tell us. The Virile may have pushed us to the edge, but we pushed back. And we grew because of it. We became what we are because of them. Ben stood by the window staring out at the stars. It's almost poetic. The very thing that tried to destroy us made us stronger. Tom joined him, putting a hand on his shoulder. Yeah. And now it's our turn to carry that forward. To make sure we never forget what we're capable of. The team stayed late into the night, recording, translating, and understanding the Virile logs. Each revelation was more incredible than the last. They discovered that the Virile had not only attacked physically but had spread fear and anger across entire star systems. Yet humans had survived, learned, and adapted. They had turned the enemy's strength into their own. Finally, when the ship's lights dimmed to conserve energy, Eliza leaned back in her chair. "We can't tell the world about this," she said quietly. "Not yet. Some truths are too dangerous. But we need to remember. We need to understand how far we've come." Clara nodded. "And what we might face in the future. If something like the Virile ever comes back, we'll be ready." Ben looked at the logs one last time. "It's amazing. The Virile tried to erase us, and instead they defined us." Eliza smiled faintly. "Yes, they defined us. And now we know our true history. Not the history written in books, but the history we survived. The history that proves humanity is stronger than anyone ever imagined." The hidden chamber lay beneath the largest tower, its entrance almost invisible behind a wall of translucent material. Eliza, Tom, and Clara approached it carefully. The air was cooler here, heavy with a faint hum that seemed to come from the very walls themselves. "This place, it feels alive," Clara whispered, stepping forward. Her boots made soft echoes on the smooth floor. The chamber stretched farther than they had expected. In the center, dozens of tall crystals pulsed faintly, casting a soft blue glow across the walls. Eliza knelt beside one of the crystals, brushing her hand across its smooth surface. "These are data crystals," she said. "I've read about them, but I've never seen one this large." Tom stepped closer. "They're humming, like they're aware we're here." The hum grew louder as they examined the crystals. Tiny lights moved inside them, patterns flowing and shifting like water. Clara reached out, almost hesitantly, and touched one. The light inside spread like a wave, reaching toward her fingers. "Whoa," she breathed. "Look at this. It's information. Memories. Stories, warnings." Eliza scanned the crystal with her device. Symbols appeared on her tablet, translating themselves into a language she could understand. Her eyes widened as she read. "The Virile, they tried to provoke humans. They attacked our minds, trying to make us angry, fearful, and divided. They wanted to bend us, to break us. Clara's hand trembled as she touched another crystal. They wanted to make us better, she said softly, eyes wide. Everything they did, it was a test. Tom ran a hand through his hair. A test, or a trap? They tried to destroy us, but somehow, we survived. Eliza nodded slowly. Yes. And in surviving, we adapted. We learned. Every attack, every battle, it sharpened our minds and our skills. Even when enraged, humans found ways to fight back. Clara's eyes were fixed on the flowing lights in the crystal. It's strange, terrifying, but also inspiring. Their cruelty made us stronger. Everything they did to break us made us more clever, more determined. The team spent hours moving from crystal to crystal, each one telling more of the Viral's story. Images flickered inside the crystals. Humans at the edge of despair, colonies on fire, fleets disappearing without a trace. And yet, humans rose again. They rebuilt, they resisted, they learned. Every setback had been a lesson. Eliza picked up a smaller crystal and activated it. A holographic map appeared, showing distant star systems. Lines connected planets, and tiny points of light moved along the paths. These are the Viral attacks, she said. Look at the patterns. They tried to predict every move we'd make. They were clever, patient, and cruel. Tom studied the map. But notice this, he said, pointing to a cluster of points that seemed to resist the attacks. These humans didn't just survive, they fought back. They found ways around the Viral's plans. Clara's face lit up with understanding. That's what I mean. Even enraged, humans adapted. We didn't just survive by chance. We survived by learning, by changing, by using our strengths in ways they didn't expect. Eliza nodded, feeling a shiver run down her spine. The Viral didn't just underestimate us. They shaped us. Every challenge, every attack, it was a way to test our limits. And we passed. For a while, the team moved quietly among the crystals. Each hum, each pulse of light, seemed to speak to them. They felt the weight of history pressing down, the echo of battles long past. The Viral had tried to erase humanity, but in doing so, they had also revealed something profound. The true strength of humans. Clara crouched beside a crystal that glowed brighter than the others. She traced the patterns with her fingers. It's almost like they left this, for us, to show us what we could become. Tom looked uneasy. Or maybe it's a warning. They didn't succeed this time. But if something like them ever returns, we need to be ready. Eliza tapped her tablet. The symbols translated more information, strategies, records of attacks, and notes on human behavior. The Viral had analyzed humans in ways no one had ever done before. They had studied emotions, instincts, and reactions, using them as tools of war. Ben, who had joined the team recently, leaned in over her shoulder. They wanted to control us, through anger, fear, even hope. They wanted to push every limit of human nature. Clara shook her head slowly. But look at us. We're still here. We didn't just survive. We learned. We adapted. Everything they tried to use against us became a lesson. And that's why humans are stronger than anyone might think. Eliza stared at the pulsing lights, feeling the truth of Clara's words. It's almost poetic, she said. The very thing that tried to destroy us made us into who we are. The team continued exploring, uncovering more crystals. Each one contained stories of humans resisting, fighting back, and growing stronger. Some humans had discovered ways to turn the Viral's attacks against them. Others had built hidden refuges where they could regroup and plan. Even the smallest victories were recorded in the crystals, glowing like tiny beacons of hope. Tom's voice was quiet as he spoke. We're looking at the history no one remembers. Every book, every record tries to hide it. But this shows the truth. We weren't just lucky. We were made stronger by every challenge. Clara smiled faintly. It's a strange thought. That anger, fear, and danger could make us better. That the very thing that enraged us was the same thing that sharpened us. Eliza nodded. And now we know. Now we understand why humanity survived where others would have fallen. The Viral may have been cruel, but they couldn't break us. And in the end, they taught us something we didn't know we needed to learn. Hours passed, and the team finally gathered near the entrance of the chamber. The hum of the crystals was softer now, almost content, as if the information had been passed to the right hands. Clara looked back one last time. I feel like we've uncovered a part of ourselves we never knew existed. A history hidden but powerful. It's scary, but also amazing. Tom nodded. It's proof. No matter what tries to destroy us, we'll survive. We'll adapt. We'll grow stronger. That's what makes humans, humans. Eliza took a deep breath. We need to record all of this. Every crystal, every memory. People need to understand, even if they can't remember the Viral by name, they need to remember what we are capable of. Ben's voice was quiet but steady. And maybe, one day the world will see. They'll know the truth. That humans didn't just survive the impossible. We learned from it and we became better. As they left the chamber, the hum of the crystals faded behind them, but its echo remained in their minds. The hidden truths of the Viral, the lessons of rage and survival, would stay with them forever. Outside, the planet was quiet again, the towers and ruins standing silently under the dim sky. But inside the hearts of the humans, something had changed. They had seen the truth. They had understood what had been done to them, and what they had become because of it. Eliza looked at her team. We know the Viral's legacy now. We know what they tried to do. And we know we survived. That knowledge, that power, is ours. Ben stared at the holograms projected from the crystal they had just recovered. Stars, ships, and flickering lights filled the display, showing a story that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. We didn't just survive them, he said slowly, his voice low. We outlasted them. Clara leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, a grim smile on her face. We were tested, she said, her eyes tracing the patterns of the fleets and colonies in the hologram. Pushed to the limit. And we evolved. Every challenge they threw at us, it made us stronger. Eliza stepped closer to the display, tracing the lines with her finger. Every loss, every setback, every near disaster, it was a lesson. They thought they could break us. But each time humans learned. We grew smarter, faster, tougher. Tom watched silently, shaking his head in disbelief. It's incredible. The Viral underestimated the one thing humans never lack: stubbornness. We refuse to give up no matter what's thrown at us. The hologram shifted, showing planets burning under strange energy waves. Human fleets had been destroyed, colonies erased from history. Entire systems had disappeared. But scattered among the destruction were small groups, surviving, adapting, learning. Humans had taken the Viral's attacks and turned them into strategies, building defenses, creating weapons, and learning to anticipate their enemies' moves. Ben's eyes were fixed on a single planet in the hologram. Look at this one, he said. It should have been gone years ago. But they survived. They learned the patterns, found shelter, and rebuilt. Every time the Viral thought they had won, humans were ready with something new. Clara nodded. That's what amazes me. They thought fear and anger would destroy us. But instead it taught us discipline, strategy, and unity. Every mistake we made, we turned into knowledge. Eliza tapped her tablet, translating more symbols from the crystals. They didn't just attack physically. They attacked minds, emotions, relationships. They forced humans to confront themselves in ways no other species ever had. And we adapted. We survived the attacks by learning control, patience, and tactics they never expected us to develop. Tom's hand moved across the hologram, pointing to lines of light connecting planets. See this? This shows human alliances forming. After every disaster, survivors banded together, sharing knowledge, pooling resources, and planning strikes against the Viral. They became faster, smarter, more coordinated. The Viral didn't anticipate that humans would use anger and loss as fuel for growth. Clara's smile widened slightly. We are proof that adversity shapes us. Every tragedy, every enemy, every impossible situation, it didn't break us. It made us stronger. Ben shook his head slowly. It's hard to imagine. I mean, look at the data. The Viral had centuries of experience. They were faster, smarter, and more advanced. Yet humans survived, and in some cases outsmarted them. That's the human edge. Eliza's eyes glinted with determination. Exactly. That's why humanity dominates the galaxy now. We don't just adapt. We take the challenge, learn from it, and turn it into an advantage. The Viral may have been clever, but they couldn't predict the way humans grow through struggle. The hologram changed again, showing a massive fleet of humans launching a coordinated attack. It was not the largest fleet, nor the most advanced, but every move had precision. Every strike seemed almost instinctive, as though humans had learned from centuries of suffering, loss, and mistakes. Tom watched in awe. We weren't the strongest. We weren't the fastest. But we were clever, patient, and stubborn. And that made us unstoppable. Clara walked closer to the display, pointing at a small cluster of ships. These people, they were survivors, innovators. They had no choice but to be brilliant. They created strategies on the fly, improvised weapons, coordinated with other survivors across planets. They weren't perfect, but they learned and learning became their weapon. Eliza's voice was quiet but firm. It's the same now. Humans survived the impossible before, and will survive the impossible again. We have instincts that no one else can match: creativity under pressure, stubbornness under fire, and the ability to adapt faster than anyone thinks possible. Ben studied a line of human colonies in the hologram. And it wasn't just strategy. It was resilience. Every colony lost taught another one how to survive. Every fleet destroyed taught the survivors how to rebuild better, smarter, faster. The Viral didn't just fail to destroy us, they trained us. Clara's eyes softened as she looked around at her team. It's terrifying and amazing at the same time. Imagine facing a species that can attack your mind, manipulate your emotions, and erase your home. And yet, we turn that threat into strength. That's why humans endure. Tom leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the holograms flicker. Other species might panic, might collapse under pressure. We don't. We fight, we learn, we adapt. That's the human edge. Eliza took a deep breath, touching the holographic projection lightly. And it all comes from history. From the pain, the loss, and the anger. That's the gift the Viral never meant to give us. They thought they could destroy our species, but in doing so they made us formidable. Ben ran his hands through his hair. I can't stop thinking about it. Every time we faced the impossible, we adapted. Every time we were pushed to the edge, we learned something new. Every failure became a tool for future survival. Humans don't just survive, they evolve through adversity. Clara nodded slowly. It's a lesson. Not just for us but for everyone who comes after. We are capable of things no other species can do. We endure, and endurance builds strength. Anger and hardship don't destroy us, they refine us. Eliza's gaze moved to the stars outside the ship's viewport. And that's why humanity spreads across the galaxy. Not because we are the strongest or the smartest or the fastest, but because we never stop growing. We turn every challenge into an advantage. That's the human edge. The hologram shifted once more, showing humans reclaiming planets that had been lost. Cities rose from ashes, fleets rebuilt from ruins, and alliances formed across star systems. Each movement was precise, deliberate, and unstoppable. Tom finally spoke, his voice steady. Every species we meet in the stars might think they can overpower us. But they'll discover the same thing the Viral did. Humans don't just survive attacks. We use attacks to learn, to grow, to become stronger than anyone expects. Clara's grin widened, and for the first time that night, her eyes sparkled with pride. And no matter how clever, patient, or cruel the enemy, they'll always underestimate stubborn humans. That's why we win. Ben smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the hologram. We've been tested. Pushed to the limit. And through it all, we evolved. We didn't just survive. We adapted. We outlasted. And we'll keep doing it no matter what comes next. Eliza turned from the display, her expression firm. The Viral thought they could bend us, break us, or erase us. But humans have a gift they didn't understand. We turn pain into knowledge, loss into power, anger into strategy. We endure. And endurance makes us unstoppable. The ship cut through the dark stretch of space, heading back to the human homeworld. Silence filled the cabin, heavy but not uncomfortable. Each member of the crew was lost in thought, carrying the weight of what they had uncovered. The crystals, the holograms, the hidden histories of the Viral, they all sat in their minds like flickering shadows. Eliza leaned back in her seat, staring at the stars through the viewport. The faint lights of distant systems passed like tiny sparks. People should know how far we've come, she whispered to Tom, who sat beside her, his hands folded on his lap. Tom's eyes reflected the starlight. Yes, he said quietly. They should know what humanity survived. But the truth, some truths are too dangerous. Not everyone can understand it. Not yet. Ben, who had been silently monitoring the ship's systems, spoke without looking up. That's why it has to stay a secret. History forgets what it cannot face. The Viral almost broke humanity. If people knew the full story, they might panic instead of learning. We'll keep it safe for now. Clara, sitting across from them, nodded. Even if the world never hears about it, the knowledge is ours. Humanity's legacy isn't written in books. It's written in survival, in resilience, in the way we adapt to impossible odds. Eliza's eyes were distant as she remembered the holograms, the fleets destroyed, the colonies that vanished and returned stronger than before. Every step we've taken through history, every mistake, every loss, it shaped us. And now we understand that. That knowledge is part of who we are. The hum of the ship filled the cabin, blending with the soft whispers of thought. Outside, stars streaked past, a reminder of how small they were in the galaxy, and yet how powerful. Humanity had endured horrors that would have destroyed other species. The Virile had tried to break them, to manipulate anger and fear, but humans had turned every attack into strength. Ben finally leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "It's strange," he said. "To think of all those who lived and died, who fought battles we'll never hear about, all because of a species no one remembers. Yet without them we wouldn't be who we are. Their rage made us sharper, faster, smarter." Clara's lips curved in a faint smile. "It's ironic, isn't it? The Virile tried to destroy humanity and instead, they forged us. They created a species capable of surviving anything, even them." Tom looked thoughtful, staring at the panels on the control deck. "It makes you wonder. How many other threats are out there waiting? How many challenges have we yet to face that will test us again?" Eliza's jaw tightened. "No matter what comes, humanity will endure. We've been pushed to the edge, tested in ways no one else could imagine. And we survived. That's the truth we carry, even if no one else knows it." The journey home was long, giving the crew time to reflect on the lessons they had learned. They reviewed the data, the holograms, the patterns of attacks and survival. Every piece told the same story. Humans faced an enemy that should have destroyed them, yet they endured. They adapted. They became stronger because of it. Ben's voice broke the silence again. "It's not just survival. It's evolution. Every hardship, every attack, every failure, it became part of our growth. That's what makes humanity special. Not strength, not speed, not numbers, but the ability to endure, adapt, and overcome." Clara nodded slowly, watching the distant lights of a nearby star system. "And that's the lesson we carry forward. Even when the universe throws everything at us, even when it seems impossible, humans will find a way. That's our legacy." Eliza's eyes softened as she thought of all the unknown humans who had lived through the Virile attacks. All those people who fought, who survived, they gave us this gift. Their anger, their struggle, their rage, it wasn't wasted. It became part of humanity's strength. Tom spoke quietly, almost to himself. "And it's still in us. Every time humans face danger, conflict, or fear, that legacy guides us. It shapes our decisions, our courage, and our resolve. That's why no one can truly erase us." Ben smiled faintly. "Even in silence, humanity's story is clear. We are the species that endured. The species that survived when others would have fallen. The species that thrives in the face of impossible odds." Clara's eyes reflected the faint glow of the ship's controls. "And we'll carry it forward quietly if we must. People may never know the full story, but they will inherit the lessons. The strength, the stubbornness, the endurance. That is what matters." Eliza leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. "Sometimes the truth is too dangerous for the world. But even hidden, it shapes us. Even unseen, it guides us. We are proof that humanity cannot be broken." The ship passed through a nebula, colors swirling against the black of space. The crew watched in quiet awe, feeling the vastness of the galaxy around them. It was beautiful and terrifying, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. And somewhere out there, the legacy of the Virile's rage still lingered, a silent reminder of what humans had overcome. Tom's voice broke the reverie. "We should be proud quietly. Not for glory, not for recognition, but for the fact that we endured. That we grew stronger. That we became the species that no one, not even the Virile, could destroy." Clara nodded. "Pride, yes. But also responsibility. The legacy of rage, it belongs to us now. We carry it and we ensure humanity continues to thrive, no matter what the universe throws at us." Ben's eyes scanned the horizon of stars. "I wonder how many others will face the same tests in the future. How many civilizations will stumble, falter, or fall? And how many will rise like we did, learning from the mistakes of those who came before?" Eliza's hand rested lightly on the console. "It doesn't matter how many try to erase us, hide our history, or ignore the truth. Humanity's legacy is in our actions, in our endurance, in the way we keep moving forward. That is unbreakable." The crew remained quiet for a while, each reflecting on the journey, the lessons, and the weight of history. They had uncovered something extraordinary, something no one else could fully understand. Yet they knew it would shape the future, quietly guiding humanity toward growth, survival, and triumph. Finally, Eliza spoke again. "We may not tell the world everything we've learned. But that doesn't make it any less real. Humanity has faced the impossible before. And we will do it again with the same stubbornness, courage, and resolve that has carried us this far." Clara smiled faintly. "Even if no one remembers the Virile by name, they will remember the lessons. the rage they inspired, the strength it forged. That's our legacy and no one can take it from us. Tom's eyes shone with quiet determination. And we'll continue to grow, to learn, to endure, to thrive. That's what makes humans different. That's what makes us unstoppable. Ben leaned back, looking out at the stars one last time. We survived the impossible. We learned from it. And even in silence, humanity's legacy is clear. We are the species that endures, that thrives, that conquers the impossible. Eliza's voice was soft, almost a whisper. And that is enough. The ship continued its journey home, carrying the crew, their discoveries, and the knowledge of a history that had been hidden for centuries. The stars stretched on endlessly, a reminder of the vastness of space, the challenges yet to come, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. Even if no one else knew the truth, humanity's legacy was secure. They were survivors, learners, fighters, and dreamers. They had faced the impossible and endured. They had thrived against the odds. And that, above all, would guide the species into the future. The silence of space was comforting, filled with the quiet knowledge that humans had grown stronger through rage, through struggle, and through the trials they had faced. Even in quiet, even in secrecy, humanity's story was clear. No force in the universe could erase them, and no enemy could destroy what they had become. Years had passed since the ship returned from the silent planet. The galaxy had changed in small ways and large ones, but some things remained the same. Humanity continued to move forward, spreading across the stars, building new worlds and searching deeper into space. Most people lived their lives without knowing the truth that had once been uncovered. History books stayed clean and simple. The name of the enemy was never written. In a quiet research station far from busy trade routes, a small plaque rested on a plain metal wall. The station itself was old, built into a lonely asteroid that drifted near the edge of human space. Few visitors came here. Fewer still noticed the plaque. It was small, simple, and easy to miss. The words were carved carefully. To the challenge that made us who we are. Clara stood alone in the room, her hair now touched with gray. Time had softened her face, but her eyes were still sharp. She reached out and touched the plaque gently as if it were fragile. "We'll never name them," she said quietly. "But we won't forget." The room was silent, filled only with the low hum of the station's systems. Outside the window, stars burned calmly in the dark. Clara remembered the planet, the towers, the crystals, and the truth hidden inside them. She remembered the feeling of standing on the edge of something ancient and dangerous. Eliza had not come with her today. Neither had Tom or Ben. Life had taken them in different directions, though they stayed in touch. Each of them carried the truth in their own way. Some nights, Clara wondered if they felt the same quiet weight she did. She turned from the plaque and walked slowly through the station. It was mostly empty now. Once, it had been filled with researchers studying human history, psychology, and survival. Over time, the work was quietly moved elsewhere. The data was sealed, stored deep in secure systems known only to a few. Not because humanity was weak, but because humanity was strong. Clara stepped into the main observation hall and looked out into space. Humanity had grown far since those early days. New colonies shone like scattered lights across the galaxy. Ships traveled farther and faster than ever before. Other species watched humans with caution and curiosity. They saw explorers, builders, traders. They did not see the past. They did not see the rage that once burned through human minds. They did not see the fear, the loss, the near collapse. They did not see the enemy that tried to bend humanity and failed. And that was fine. Because the lessons lived on even without words. Human ships were built with care and backup systems upon backup systems. Human leaders planned for failure as much as success. Human soldiers trained not just for strength but for endurance and control. Human scientists questioned everything and trusted nothing blindly. These habits were never explained in history lessons. They were simply part of who humans were. Clara remembered Ben's words from long ago. Some truths were too dangerous to share. Not because they would weaken people but because they might change them in the wrong way. Fear could spread faster than wisdom. Outside the station, a small transport ship passed by, carrying young researchers to a new colony. They laughed over open channels, excited and unaware. Clara smiled faintly. This was what humanity had protected. She sat down on a bench near the window and let her thoughts drift. She thought of the Virile, though she never said the name out loud. She thought of their careful plans, their cold minds, and their belief that humans could be shaped like tools. They had been wrong. Humans were not tools. They were not fragile. They were not simple. When pushed, humans resisted. When hurt, humans adapted. When enraged, humans learned. The enemy had studied humanity and thought they understood it. They had believed anger would cause collapse. Instead it caused growth. They had believed fear would lead to surrender. Instead it led to unity. Clara closed her eyes for a moment. She could almost hear the hum of the crystals again, feel the quiet warning hidden inside them. The past had not been gentle, but it had been honest. Humanity did not pretend to be perfect. Humanity learned by surviving mistakes. She stood and walked back to the plaque one last time. Her fingers rested on the carved words. They were simple, but they carried everything. The challenge had no name, but it had a legacy. Far beyond the station, humanity continued to expand. New worlds rose from dust. Old ones grew stronger. Trade routes stretched wider. Alliances formed and shifted. Humans argued, disagreed, failed, and tried again. Other species sometimes wondered why humans were so difficult to defeat. Why they recovered so quickly. Why losses only seemed to slow them, never stop them. They did not know the answer. And humans did not explain it. Because the answer was not a story. It was a history written into behavior, instinct, and choice. Clara prepared to leave the station. As she walked toward the exit, she looked back once more. The plaque caught the light, glowing softly for a brief moment before fading into shadow. That was enough. On distant worlds, children were born under unfamiliar skies. They would grow up speaking new languages, seeing strange suns, and calling alien soil home. They would never hear the name of the species that once truly enraged humanity. But they would inherit the result. They would inherit caution. They would inherit resilience. They would inherit the refusal to surrender. Humanity moved forward not as conquerors driven by hate, but as survivors shaped by experience. The rage of the past had cooled into something stronger and steadier. Resolve. Clara boarded her ship and took one last look at the station as it drifted away. It grew smaller, then vanished among the stars. The plaque remained, unseen but present, a quiet marker of a truth that did not need to be spoken. The ship turned toward open space. Engines warmed. Stars stretched into lines of light. Humanity continued onward. They carried no banners of victory. They sang no songs of the enemy. They told no stories of the rage that once consumed them. Yet in every careful plan, every stubborn stand, every quiet refusal to fall, the memory lived on. And in that silence, their strength was remembered,